Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today with Daniel Nestor, editor of Pine Hills Review. How's it going, Daniel?
Great, great. How are you?
Doing good. And you're up in Albany, is that correct?
Just outside Albany in a town called Del Mar. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. How are things over there? Is it freezing cold? I just always think of Albany.
No, it's a balmy 30 something today.
Oh,
So
oh, nice.
yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for joining me today, and thanks everyone for coming out. As always, if you have questions, just go ahead and type them into the chat, and I will work them into my conversation with Daniel. So let's jump right in. Pine Hills Review is an online literary magazine out of I had it written down, St. Mary Rose. Sorry, you go ahead.
St. Rose.
You'll know better than I do. St. Rose. And yeah, just tell us about the origin of the magazine and then its affiliation with the university.
Yeah, sure. It was started in 2014 as part of the ramping up of an MFA program that the college started. That program was discontinued maybe 4 years later, I want to say. So, and we had, I'm skipping over maybe a couple of years where the journal we had to come up with a name. We had to, ramp up the staff and just figure out, our logo and all that sort of stuff, all pretty much, in-house or as part of the college. The MFA program was discontinued, I want to say 2018, 2019, and I had already been having undergraduate interns and other things. So I sort of made the call to keep going with the journal because the journal had already sort of developed its own identity and energy. And, I know from my past years and years of experience that I've started journals and then stopped them and maybe even regretted stopping them. So I just thought I should keep this going, especially because in this iteration of editing a journal, it's part of a college. It's part of my job. I'm a professor of English at the College of St. Rose. So I've kept doing it, and I've always been the editor of it. Not because I'm, power hungry or anything, but no one's really said they want to be the editor. What I find really different and fulfilling is working with students to make the journal happen. And it's not a student journal, as I often have to explain, even on campus. It's a legit journal. We publish writers from all around the world. And so doing that has been really, really great and gratifying on a professional level too, which has been different because I've run journals. I think I wrote to you, I was listing all the journals I've helped edit or edited myself over the years, everything from we can get into some of those, but I was like, okay, this thing feels more grown up. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah. Stick it out. And did you have any conflict with the university over keeping the journal? Because I know I'm interested because right now I think a similar struggle is happening at Purdue University where they're trying to shut down the program, and it's Sycamore Review, I think, is sort of endangered.
Well, that's a much bigger scale, that's a much more established program. And I think that's a print journal. So there's a lot more moving parts there. I would say with this, I had a choice. If you're familiar with Court Green, which is a great journal that started as an affiliated journal at Columbia College in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
And you'd have to ask them. I've always been curious because I'm friendly with the editors and they've published me a couple of times, but now they are an independent journal. And
interesting.
Yeah. So basically I just renewed the WordPress for Pine Hills Review and I paid for it. I just legit did it from my PayPal, just before this meeting. And, that's basically the only receipt I send into the college to reimburse. For me, keeping it affiliated is helpful for teaching a class. And also publicity, because every once in a while they'll like put a press release out and it just helps in that regard. That sort of thing. So it's, I'm on a much smaller scale, and our MFA program was a baby one at it was sort of like cut off in its 4th or 5th year. That Purdue thing is really, I think it's a much larger thing.
And so is there any kind of oversight from the university about what you should be publishing or shouldn't, or is it just total editorial freedom?
It's pretty much total editorial freedom. I don't know if anyone really reads it at the college. I mean, I've taught this class called publishing and editing online literary journals. And so like what we do is we put together a special feature. So we do like a call for work and stuff. So I think like that the college notices, because the class is putting it together. So we've done 2 of those so far. So that it made like our little magazine, and there was a story about it on our website.
Right.
And that was like entirely student run. I mean, I helped them, I taught them as we did it, but that was pretty much like a student production.
Okay. And it's not my first thought, because it's St. Rose. I thought, oh, this is a Catholic university. And I thought the magazine might have some, and then I saw that actually there was a poem. The first poem I saw was about going to church, feeling alienated from the church. And then I saw in your bio that you've published a book of poetry or novel, making out in church. So I thought there might be a religious kind of theme of the magazine, but it sounds like, then when I did a little more research, it sounds like the university is completely secular and the magazine has no connection to any religious theme whatsoever.
Right. I mean, if anything, Pine Hills Review is a Satanist journal. It's pretty much,
it's a
I often joke with colleagues that our tagline at St. Rose should be like, "We're not even Catholic anymore," or something like that. I mean, around this area, like St. Rose is known as like kind of a teacher's college. Like at one point we were the 2nd biggest education program in the state, and it still is pretty much a powerhouse as far as that stuff goes. So, I'll go as, aren't you in Boston? Are you in Boston or?
I was in Boston for a while. Yeah. And then I moved to Pittsburgh, and then now I'm in Philadelphia.
Oh, Philly. Okay. Gotcha. I mean, like even far away as Philly, somebody will say, "Oh, I had an aunt who went to St. Rose and her name is like Mary Elizabeth Flattery," or, it'll be like this Irish name, and it'll be like, she was a grade school teacher. So that's kind of the historical profile. And nowadays it's a lot different, of course.
Okay. So one question I have, I need to know about the images on the site, because I'm going to share the screen for a second so people can see on the about. Let's see if I can set this up without.
I just revamped all those guys.
So
this is a story of desperation, I have to say.
All right, let's see. So can you guys all see this? Yes.
This is, I think there's even a tagline for these.
So I was really curious about the decision behind these dolls.
Well, it was a late night decision.
Okay.
Well, I mean, these are all from a Facebook ad if you go to all the other pages, these are all from a Facebook ad called Vintage 1950s Sleep and Wet Doll from Facebook and it's from Facebook Marketplace. I think I said that already. Usually, when we sort of went on a break for about 1.5 years, I want to say back in 2016, 17. And before that, we didn't have any images at all. It was really text. I think the idea was to keep it clean and foreground the text. So then around 2017, when we sort of came back up, we added images, and we had to do it for like a good 4-year span. But so we started running images with each piece,
Mhm.
and then we sort of retroactively put images on every piece. So
Ah,
now, and it's really hard. I mean, I suppose you talk to more editors than I do, is like, we want to have images there, but it's, but I don't want to go with like Flickr
mhm,
images. I would like to go with original images.
mhm.
So, every once in a while we'll have a lot of them are by students, the photographs, or a friend of an editor, a friend of an intern.
Mm,
So we try to keep it pretty homespun as far as that goes. So that's
mhm.
like Albany area Facebook Marketplace. Somebody selling a sleeping wet doll in the Albany area. Then there's actually a good resource like around here, the Upper Hudson Valley Library, digital archives.
Yeah.
So actually that's been kind of fun. I mean, very much, I'm not a gallery curator. I am not, but and it's also hard if you're like a legit artist. You'll say, oh, it's going to accompany this fiction piece,
Right.
so they're not even going to get like a tagline. We'll have a credit line that's at the bottom.
Mm,
So sometimes the lower stakes of it is kind of great. I can
mm.
ask somebody, hey, do you have any photographs lying around you'd like to have just run with our writing?
Yeah. Yeah. So those
But I think
photographs
it
don't
speaks to the
necessarily.
irreverence of it.
Yeah. Okay. So there's like an irreverent spirit.
Yeah.
So let's cover the basics. So the journal publishes poetry, fiction, nonfiction, and hybrid experimental work.
Yeah.
But anything else? Yeah.
Interviews. We do a lot of
Interviews.
interviews.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how would you, this is always a hard one for editors, but how would you kind of classify the kind of work that you're seeking? Sounds like maybe irreverent, spirited, fun. I saw, the call for submissions, honest, compelling. Is there a kind of overriding ethos of the work that you publish?
Yeah, I mean, like it's a good question, and I think the fact that you're saying a lot of editors sort of stammer and
Yeah.
they, like our about page is kind of like glaringly, vanilla.
Mm,
And one project I've had with is to come up with something a bit more distinctive, but there's that tug and pull between, oh, okay, we're going to have a new crop of editors in 2 or 3 years, maybe from students. They may not want to do irreverent. They may want to do sincere.
mhm,
So, and I don't want to be like even more of a bossy boots and, come up with that. So I feel like the latest iteration is to try to come up with a different mission statement every couple of years.
mhm.
And
Makes
which
sense.
sounds maybe a little bit multiple personality ish, but I do think that is something to think about. I'm not a nonprofit runner, natural person. I know those people, and I always scoff at the mission statement thing, but
Yeah.
here's a moment when I wish I could just rattle it off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the kind of work that we publish is almost, is irreverent fun. We want it to be different. We want it to be surprising.
Mhm.
We don't want it to be staid or anything. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that, I'm looking at submissions along with 3 or 4 college age writer editors.
Mhm.
And also, my what I prefer as well.
Mhm.
So so we sort of kept it, sort of a cover everything type of thing in that mission statement,
Right.
excellent stuff. That's,
Can you talk about a recent story or essay or poem that you accepted and why, just why it hit the mark for you guys?
Yeah, I have 2 monitors, so I'm looking over here and I'm punching
Sure.
up the archives page. I mean, for me, I think, something by Emily Highland, Relapse Ars Poetica, like hit the
Mm.
mark for me. Like, just from the title,
Mhm.
the idea of it being sort of irreverent and real life oriented, but also having this highbrow art, the Ars Poetica thing. It's a
Mm.
villanelle.
Okay.
So then that really hit with the other editors who are like studying villanelles in their English
Right.
classes. So that for me has been great. One of my favorites is like, this is the second go around for a poet named David Kirby, a great poet from in Florida. And he wrote a poem called Everybody Loves Our Town, an Oral History of Grunge by Mark Yarm by David Kirby. That's the full title. And then it's by David Kirby. So it's that one. I'm a bit of a music person. So that one really floated my boat as well.
Right. Interesting. Okay. So tell us how the editorial process works. It sounds like it's part of a class, or is it?
It's only part of a class like in the last couple of springs. Usually it's like we require an internship for our English majors, or non-teaching English majors, the true English nerds. And so we make sure they get out there and do something, something that's professional. So in Albany, a lot of them might be working at a nonprofit or, a gallery or whatever. And one or two of them will be an intern at Pine Hills Review.
Okay.
And so we all do it we used to have Submittable, but Submittable costs about $5 billion now, I think, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't know the exact figures.
Yeah.
And but we were one of the first adopters back in 2014.
Okay.
When it was like $280 for 35 seats, as they call them. I mean, it was like glorious. I mean, if it only it could be like that.
Right.
But now we do it all into our Gmail.
Can we take a minor detour there? Because I know a lot of editors are getting really frustrated.
I created labels to make it look like Submittable.
Sorry, I think my screen froze and we were talking over each other for a second there. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
But I see a lot of editors getting really frustrated with Submittable, and I don't know. I wanted to see if you had any inside intel about that.
Well, I just I see it on the Twitters. Their editors talking about how expensive it is, and then also like the latest update, which I think is every couple of years Submittable will change its interface.
Okay.
I mean, they're so cool. I think it's a couple, maybe 3 people in Montana who run Submittable. They used to be called Submishmash.
Yeah.
Right. And I even still have a headband from AWP. And I am rooting for them, I mean, they built the better mousetrap, because when I ran an online journal called unpleasanteventsschedule.com, which I can't believe the domain was available. It was from my medical editing in Philadelphia, actually, when I lived in Philly. I think Crazy Horse still uses it. It's something from CLMP. It's called like the submission manager. I don't know if I'm sure lots of writers have encountered it. It's like, it looks like a
form you have to
school, submission manager. And, there's no like status or anything like that. It's just like you have, so when they started with Submittable, of course, as a writer, I would submit to Submittable journals. But then when we started Pine Hills Review, I was like, oh, well, we're going to use Submittable. And it's a tale of, purse tightening in academia where I was like, in order for me to say teach an online literary journal class and use Submittable, it would be like 4 figures easy to have to use Submittable for it. So we just use a Gmail address. Okay. And I also think it's like, I noticed in your other interviews, just the whole charging for submissions thing. Like, do we charge for submissions as Pine Hills Review? Like, I mean, we're a good, I think we're a great journal, but is anyone going to fork over $3, $5 to send their 6 poems to us? I just think that's kind of an ethical quandary. I mean, and we also don't get as many, we don't get like the 1,000 that Passages North would get. So there's kind of no reason to do it. So we'd be paying cash for it, not charging enough to like make it, so there was no reason to use Submittable. So so now we use Gmail, and it's kind of
Okay.
wacky because we color the labels to make it look like submittable. So it's like green for accepted and red for no.
Yeah, that's a good workaround.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, I cut you off before that little submittable detour, but you were talking about the editorial process. So you have student interns that you work with, and what is the editorial process like? Are they the first readers of every piece, and then if they like it, they pass it on to you, or do you also look at every piece?
Yeah, we read them all at the same time and in the Gmail, and we have we added this sort of Chrome extension called Gmail Notes. And so, you can, back in the old days, as I tell my students, like I used to read, the first time I read submissions was for Painted Bride Quarterly, which is in Philly. And, there was no, maybe email was yet to be invented because it was the 90s. And we would write on the back of envelopes. So like for us, like that's the sort of Gmail notes. So if you open up a submission, you'll see like a little yellow thing and it looks like a sticky note. And you like leave your initials there. So I really like this poem, DN might be like something I would leave. And so we're all reading at the same time. It's not like there's a first line of submission readers, like in a bigger operation. It's pretty much, 4 of us.
Yeah. And does everyone read
Reading
everything them. Or just the poetry editors read the poetry and you read everything?
Everybody reads everything. Although I'm pretty deferential for the fiction. I'm not a fiction writer.
Oh, okay.
I'm not like super fiction person. So there's a couple of editors who, their vote is maybe more weighted that way.
Right.
But it's not like we have like this whole algebra of if we're going to accept it or not. There might be, I'm looking at our submissions now, and there's like a couple of grays for maybe. This is all the colors for that was in submittable last time I saw, and a couple of yeses. So I guess I'm the person who makes the last decision.
Right. And do you ever find yourself in a position, because they're younger readers and you're an English professor, where you sort of put on your professor hat and have to say like, no guys, look, this is actually a really good piece and here's why?
Yeah. I'm closing up some tabs here just because you're starting to slow down a little bit. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, there's definitely a couple times where people were like, no, I don't get it or whatever. I'm like, you don't understand. This thing is amazing.
Right.
And it's usually like that. It's like, I've actually been like, go to bat for stuff, try to convince me into it. And we've had some more, I don't want to get into names or whatever, but definitely like more emo sincere stuff.
Right.
The students have been like, this stuff is great. Like, you're wrong. And
so it happens both ways. Where
I'll be like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Let's give it a go.
So there are other times where you have to
definitely
show them. Yeah.
I miss. Yeah. I have to say the conversation right now is really high quality because two of our editors are alumni. And they're both, one went to MFA school and I still meet for coffee with him when I go to New York City. And another is in grad school now. And another person just sort of rang us up and she's a freshman in college. And so that's our editorial board right now, 2 alums of St. Rose and 1 freshman at Columbia. Okay.
So something, I know sometimes I hear from people that get a little bit concerned when the early readers are so young. So do you find that the tone of the pieces that
Can I curse on this?
Yeah. Yes. Isn't that nice? Yep. Okay. Are we back? Okay. Sorry, I disappeared there for a minute, but
Did you hear recording stop, recording in progress?
you said, can I curse? And then everything just shut down.
There is a delay. You're coming in better. You're coming in better now. I don't know.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. So yeah, I need,
It's,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Becky, you're frozen up right now. I don't know if, man, I hear my family's from South Jersey. They come, it's Xfinity or something, right?
What I'm gonna do, can you hear me?
I can go off video if I can go off video if you want.
Yeah, no, I think, am I still, you guys can hear me, right? Okay.
I'm gonna go off HD. I don't need, nobody needs to see me in HD. Although it sucks.
Can you hear me? I've turned off my video.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And I think this all signs are pointing to the fact that I absolutely need a new computer, which is something that I've been resisting. So I apologize for these kind of tech glitches. But anyway, where we were was that you were about to curse.
I don't, my dad was a truck driver. That's why I always say, that, just that idea that, well, it's only, these college kids who are the first line readers and they don't see the excellence of my work. Just it reflects a kind of, it's a bunch of BS. I mean, like, go ahead and submit to another journal. As far as the, I mean, yeah. I mean,
yeah. So you would say that the magazine publishes across the board, young, old, like diverse, new writers, established writers, like you're covering the full range. And it's not just because the readers are younger, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily skewing a particular way.
No, if anything, I think sometimes because, our interns are English majors, they may go for the more formal stuff, which might mean it's like an older writer. I mean, I'm like making sweeping statements here, but like for me, my agenda is to have a variety of voices, to have a diverse roster of writers. So, and I'm not saying that the students are against that, but like we definitely come from different vantage points. But then another editor might be like, well, we really need to like put out a call for BIPOC writers. And, so it's all over there's really no one rule of, how that dynamic goes. I will say that I think the dynamic is better because more people are reading and having a voice in reading the stuff, no matter what the age is.
Yeah. So you mentioned your history with other magazines. Can you talk about that and maybe what you learned from those experiences and what's different about your experience now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lit journal nerd through and through. I mean, like I and it's where I live as a writer. I mean, I'm not a major press kind of guy. I'm really passionate about lit journals, particularly online literary journals. I began as a Painted Bride Quarterly reader when I was like just out of college, and I thought I had made it. I thought like, yes, I am now an assistant, or I don't know what my title was, an assistant editor at Painted Bride Quarterly. Can you believe this? And the first day, I always tell my students this. They're like, yeah, we're going to get you right started on reading submissions. And they gave me like the Santa Claus bag of, submissions, which, like hundreds of stuff. And I remember walking down Spruce Street to my apartment, like, yes, like this is the literary life,
Yeah.
And it was like hours of work, hours. I
Yeah.
mean, and then I would take Patco to Collingswood and argue about the submissions that I really loved and never get my way because there were 9 people. And, I was sort of the new kid on the block.
Mm.
And so maybe it was like 3 or 4 years of that. And then at some point I took over the reins of La Petite Zine,
Oh yeah.
and I called that like my solo album. Like I'd been in the band and now I get to just do it myself. And like I just did that myself for 2 or 3 years. And that was under like a sort of like very late 90s, early aughts dynamic of Web del Sol,
Mhm.
which I think is still around.
Mhm.
But they had all these like sort of journals. I mean, I guess the most famous one is Diagram. That was like, that used to be their URL, I think used to be webdelsol.com/diagram. And we were La Petite Zine. And then I decided to just start my own from scratch. And that was when I started unpleasanteventschedule.com.
Mhm.
And I published, I ran that for maybe 6 or 7 years, maybe more. It's on archive.org. And I think there's a couple in there. I ran the Sestinas section for McSweeney's for a while, for a couple of years.
Mhm.
I'm probably missing a couple of journals as well. But those are the ones that I sort of, ran.
Mhm. So why be a literary journal nerd? What do you get out of literary magazines that you don't find elsewhere?
I mean, I think for me, I really like putting things together. I really like curating writing. I really like finding and promoting writers who, speak to me as a writer and as a reader. So, and it's changed over the years how that expresses itself.
Mhm.
Like in the beginning, like I said, I'd read Painted Bride Quarterly, submissions. And if it mentioned like, barefoot girl in the hood of a Dodge drinking beer in the warm, bringing warm beer, I would be like, that, it has a Springsteen illusion. This is my poem. So I was very like pop culture oriented and stuff. And then it sort of evolved into, just like looking for excellent work,
Mhm.
work that like, spoke to me. Then it started like, trying to think about what writing would speak to others. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about like representation as well as diversity, as well as just things that I don't quite understand, either aesthetically or subject wise. Like I had to do maybe more work as a reader and as an editor to appreciate. And then I would have this aha moment thinking like, wow, this has to be brought out into the world. So there was this turn. I don't know what year it was, or there wasn't any burning bush moment for me, but that is sort of how my point of view as an editor has evolved.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what have been some of the major challenges with Pine Hills Review, if any?
I mean, at the top of our conversation, now you sort of made me think, is the college reading this?
Oh, no.
But I have thought about what are the pluses and minuses of maybe making this like, it used to be affiliated with the college and now it's like an independent one, but it still is sort of running parallel to,
Mhm.
I could still probably teach my online literary journal editing and publishing class with this journal. So that, I don't know if that's like a challenge so much as like, I think the challenge is like, for the people who are in this Zoom or who will see this on YouTube is like, not every affiliated journal is like rolling in the dough and, getting like hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of support from their institutions.
Yeah.
More often than not, I think they're like, oh, that's great. Do that thing, you English professor. Maybe we'll pay you the $113 for the WordPress, account, or not. Maybe we won't. When I speak to other editors, that that's as much as the case as it is like a like super, we're going to have a team of computer programmers help you with the design of your website. Like, I think it's the challenge is one of like perception maybe on readers' parts. Because I think they're like, why can't you pay your writers? You're of an affiliated journal. There's this perception that like anything that's affiliated with the college like is rolling in the dough, and it's just not the case, I don't think. But definitely not the case across the board.
Right. So what would you like to see more of in submissions? If we have a writer who's watching this and they're sitting on a story and or a poem or an essay, and they're not sure if it's right for your magazine, what would you like to tell that writer? And what do you generally want to see more of?
I mean, I actually think I'm of the if you build it, they will come, school of thought. And I think if you give us a chance, take a look at what we publish, you'll see that what we publish is super duper good, super duper cool. And also, when you are a Pine Hills Review author, you're one for life. We ride or die with our writers. So we, social media, your books, we promo your writing. When we accept your writing, we say, give us your Instagram, give us your Twitter. Where are you on Facebook? We will at you, and we publish these little social media cards that go along with it to to promote their own work. So as far as like, figuring out if your piece is right for us, that's the work of the writer, frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, and so, I mean, I think it's obvious advice to anybody that if you're going to submit to a journal, you should at least click on the domain and take a look at what they publish. We don't get like I said, we get a couple hundred a month as far as submissions go. But even on that scale, you can tell there are people just grinding that stuff out.
Yeah.
And I think I use the word grinding specifically because there's one website called Submission Grinder.
Oh, yeah.
And you can tell their cover letters are the same. Same font, same format. And I got to confess, it's like, okay, this might be an awesome writer, but like, have they actually looked at our journal and figured out if it's right? And I think that submission bombing mindset is just it's just not efficient. It's just, it might make you feel good. Like, wow, I've got 50 batches of poems out there in the world. And it's like, well, yeah, but you haven't looked at any of those journals. Like,
right. Well, that was my next question is, what do you not want to see more of? And it sounds like maybe what you don't want to see is work that is just not appropriate for your magazine.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I can reject pretty quickly, just send a rejection email pretty quickly and sort of end the interaction, as efficiently as possible. But it just makes me kind of, sad for them that they're just like sending the stuff out willy-nilly. I mean, I think the fact that we don't charge for submissions is like a factor. They're like, all right, what can I lose? And that is a plus for us, because I think that some people might give us a chance if it's just a free Gmail, type of situation. But I do think that that's it's probably just not the best way. I mean, I think the submissions that we get that like aren't right for us, but you can tell that they've read us, a lot of times those are like borderline cases, and we'll send the encouraging rejection, like, please send us some more stuff. And maybe by the second, third, fourth time we'll be like, oh yeah, all right, this is right for us, this is the one that we're excited about.
And what sort of promotion do you do for the magazine to make sure that it's getting read and that it's finding readership?
Well, frankly, like something like this, I was excited to be like, oh, listen, I want to be in that same conversation as, Tom Dadato Failbetter, who I think he's one of the OGs.
Right.
I mean, as far as the online lit journal stuff goes, I mean, he was there at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And, props to him. I mean, as far as us getting read, we have a Instagram, we have a Facebook, we have a MySpace
Oh, wow.
space. So it's still around, and Twitter. Like I discovered I didn't discover one of our former editors, Michelle Lind, hipped me to Canva, which I always wondered, like, how do you make like one of those animated Facebook stories or an Instagram. And so now we have like a Canva, sort of style for our social media cards, but we'll run a little excerpt of a poem with like a often cheeky, like, illustration. And, just to promote the piece that we've just published.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So so I think that's part of it. I mean, I still feel like we're in the ramping up stage, even though we're 8 years old.
Yeah. Do you, as someone who has been so heavily involved in the lit mag scene for so long, do you get excited by all the new lit mags that are constantly coming out, or does it seem overwhelming? And from the perspective of an editor, do you feel like no more, like you just want to get your little magazine recognized, and there are all these other new magazines coming out? Or what's your take on all these magazines?
Oh, I think let 20,000 lit journals bloom, as far as I can tell. I mean, I think there should be more than even what we have now. I mean, I consider, especially online literary journals, as seizing the means of production and, smashing the gatekeepers. I mean, when I got out of my MFA program in 1997, there were no online literary journals. You would go to Poet's House, then on Spring Street, and I remember bringing a little notebook and writing down the addresses of all the journals to send submissions. And it was a shelf. It was a long shelf, but it was just a shelf of all the literary journals. And I think I don't think we've hit peak lit
So
mag.
Matt says, I think we've hit peak lit mag. Yeah.
No.
No.
I'm here to tell you, there's going to be lit journals that are exclusively on Instagram, if there isn't already. There's going to be ones that are on TikTok, only TikTok. They're going to be great. They're going to be awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't think Painted by Crow, there I slipped. Pine Hills Review necessarily is one of like the avant-garde ones that are like making the changes I want it to be, but I think that those are the lit journals that are actually finding the next great writer out there. So something like I think you're frozen.
Oh, nope, sorry. I thought you were about to add something, so I was waiting. But there's a question here from Judith. How often do you publish? So just to cover the basics, yeah, how often do you publish new work on the site? And
so
when are you open for submissions?
So we publish when we're publishing regularly every Wednesday at 4:20. And
that's hilarious.
In our acceptance, I'm like, you gotta love, editing a journal with college students. So that's Wednesday at 4:20, and so that actually speaks to like the whole challenge of being a online literary journal. Is like I've had a couple of people saying this is for a new issue of Painted by Crow. It's like, well, we don't really have issues, like we publish things. So it's kind of like a new vocabulary of publishing that's still trying to figure itself out. But we publish every week. Sometimes we'll double up. and publish something on like Sunday at 11 a.m. Like if it's like an, like a, if we really have a lot, or if we want to get an author interview up because their book's coming out, and that's a better time for them to have it out there.
Mhm.
But pretty much like every week. I mean, we're scheduled out until like the summer at this point.
And are you open for submissions continuously?
No, I mean, we take a break April 30th until
Awesome.
September 1st.
Okay, sort of with the academic calendar.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple summers there where we kept submissions open, particularly for diverse writers.
Mhm.
But we pretty much close up shop on April 30th.
Mhm.
We still do interviews and things like that, like new things. You're still working on things over the summer. It's not like we take the summer off, but I think it's good to have a little pause for the submissions, because I like to keep it scheduled out for a couple of months,
Mhm.
just so I don't feel like I have to rush
Yeah.
at 4:19 to find a Yeah, I'm a kind of organized person as far as that goes.
Mhm. That's a really demanding publishing schedule. So you have that, and you have your own teaching, and your own writing, and all sorts of other real life demands, I'm sure. Do you ever just want to throw in the towel with the Lit Mag, or is it a part of your life that really kind of fires you up?
It's both,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it tires me out. I mean, I think it's like I do it in spurts.
Mhm.
Like we'll accept maybe 10 people, and then I'll make 10 galleys in WordPress, 10, photos of, baby dolls from Facebook Marketplace. I'll make all that stuff and organize it. We have like a sort of Google Excel chart for our production schedule.
Mhm.
And so I'll schedule out like 2 or 3 months at a time.
Mhm.
So it won't be on my mind like all the time.
Okay.
It'll be as far as that stuff goes. I'll
Yeah.
read submissions like all the time,
Mhm.
like while I'm watching, prestige TV or something. But yeah.
And anything on the horizon for you? Do you have any contests coming up? Anything in particular? It sounds like it's not issue based, so there's no issue coming out.
No, I mean, I think we may do a couple of Zoom readings.
Mhm.
So there's talk of like, sort of, you call them verticals. We thought about maybe doing a podcast. We're always trying to innovate and add things. Like now we have audio. When we accept a piece of writing, we say, give us all your socials and be a couple of months, and we'll let you know when it's, we have a publication date. Do you want to submit audio? And that's actually the thing that's been great. I'm on sabbatical this semester because I have a book coming out. So I'm not teaching that online literary journal editing class where we would do a special feature, what we call a special feature. We've done 2 of those. One in 2020 was on unicorns. So these are student suggested things. And then last year we did F 2020. We did a special feature. So that actually, if you go to that, up in the menu, special features, you'll see a pull down. It'll say F 2020,
Mhm.
and it actually looks like an issue because we published like, I want to say 20 something things all at the same time.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's like something, we'll do that again. But nothing like planned in the future right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So if people are thinking about submitting and getting to know the magazine, they should go to pinehillsreview.com.
Yeah, please do. send our stuff. We get back really quick,
Mhm.
we, and I think it's a great credit. It's great to have on your acknowledgements page for your
Yeah,
future.
yeah, definitely. And your Twitter, you're at Pine Hills Review. Where else can people find you and sort of follow what's going on?
We're on Instagram, Pine Hills
Okay.
Review.
Okay.
And we have a Facebook page too. So when we publish those things on Wednesdays at 4:20, we put out an announcement on all of those channels.
Okay. That's great. Well, thank you so much. It sounds like a really fun and humorous, lively magazine.
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, it's been really fulfilling to do it this way. It feels grown up and not grown up at the same time to collaborate with the young people. But hey, thanks so much for what you do. I love your Substack, and I love these YouTube videos. I mean,
oh, thanks. Yeah, my pleasure. I'm sorry it was so glitchy, and to everybody tuning in, like, my apologies. I'm gonna get a new computer and settle this once and for all.
Yeah, and maybe I'll see you in Philly if you're.
Oh, I guess absolutely.
You're gonna have to be for the Associated.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't avoid it.
Programs.
It's
I know everybody I have talked to in Philly. It's such a Philly response to be like, yeah, they're coming. Like, Jesus, come on. We're all happy to come there.
We're bracing ourselves.
It's like, are you from Philly, or are you you've just become a Philadelphian that quick?
I guess so. I'm just by virtue of being here, I've become very world weary.
It's like, and so it begins.
Yeah. Well, it's AWP. I think it's great. I actually always have a lot of fun at AWP, but it is, when you come in contact with like 18,000 other people that are, doing exactly what you're doing, it's a little intense, to say the least.
It's a little much, especially it's a little much when it's in like a small city.
Yeah.
But even then, I think when 10,000 writers even go to Philadelphia, you're going to be walking down and you're going to see lanyards on Market Street, and it's going to be.
I'll see people with their tote bags and their literary magazines and.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna wear, if I go to Dirty Frank's, I'm gonna wear my lanyard. I can't like act like I'm cool.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. Well, now you're actually making me nostalgic, because I haven't been in years. So the lanyards are bringing back fond memories. So maybe I'll check it out. Yeah.
You should. I mean, my sister, I have to say, got me on a reading because she goes to these bars, and she was like, "Oh, you're gonna have my brother for this," and the bartender was like, "Okay, I guess." So I have one reading from my sister who lives in
that's great.
Philly.
Yeah, that's great. That's what sisters are for.
I guess. Gotta love her.
Yeah. So when you were here, it sounds like you were near Center City. Is that?
I went to Rutgers and Camden, and then I lived in Philly for a couple of years before I moved to New York City.
Oh,
so,
okay.
But I'm a South Jersey boy. I grew up in Maple Shade, and so nice. Philly is sort of the first city. Well, Camden's a city, so it counts.
Cool. Well, I'll take good care of the city for you.
Philly will take care of itself. It doesn't need my help.
That's true. Good point. Well, I'm going to stop the recording because this is getting silly now. But but thanks so much, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
All right. Thanks.